Hi everyone, welcome to today's share class. It is a cold and snowy springtime day in Colorado, and I thought today would be the perfect day to show you how to make the absolute best tomato soup. And I know most people are so used to making it out of a can, but I want to show you this recipe. It's pretty simple. There's just a few basic steps to it. And so let's get started. You're gonna need, let me just give you the list. Let me grab, let's see. You're gonna need olive oil. And then the next thing you're gonna need is a Vidalia onion. And you want it kind of a smaller one. You don't need a huge one. And you know what I love about Vidalia onions is that they are definitely sweeter. I would not recommend using a red onion or a white onion for this recipe. You want that milder flavor that you get with a Vidalia onion. So I'm just peeling it really quick here. I'll probably set all my extras off to the side over here. Okay, so peel that onion up. And then we're just going to dice it real quick. And I just cut it in half and then slice it in about 1/4 slices. And then you take it and you turn it and do the exact same thing. And then you'll get diced onion. You don't have to slice it any extra. It's a great little trick. And so you probably just need, I would say it's about a 1/2 cup's worth. So I'm just going to use half of the onion. And what you'll need is a saucepan, and you want to put that on medium heat and let that heat up. And so we have sliced up our onion, and now we're going to take 3 garlic cloves and just smash them and remove the peel from them. You guys know I have a garden, so I reserve all my extra peels and everything so I can put it in my composter. So smash those up. And I love this recipe on a cold day. I know summer is gonna hit here soon, but you know, weather in Colorado is just super funny in the springtime. You never know what you're gonna get, and it just so happens it is snowing today, so I thought I would record this because I was gonna make it my youngest son, it's his all-time favorite soup. Who doesn't love grilled cheese with tomato soup? And it's just like that favorite comfort meal that so many of us have. And so I am just dicing up this, or mincing, I should say, mincing the garlic to tiny bite-sized pieces. And don't worry if you don't get it super small, because we're going to be pureeing this soup at the end just to make it super smooth and creamy. Okay, so you're gonna need about 2 tablespoons of olive oil, and I use extra virgin olive oil, and just put that in the saucepan that you heated up. So you guys see that here, and actually I think I'm gonna move over to this burner. It'll be a little bit easier for you guys to see. And then we will just go ahead and add in this onion and the garlic. Now, a few of our recipes that we've had on before, we've talked about the importance of garlic and onions combined together. and how, just by simmering them, we're looking at probably 7 minutes or so, and I like to keep these videos live, authentic, so you know the real time. There's nothing really prettied up for the most part. And so I want you to see that just by combining the onions and the garlic together, it not only softens the onion, but it pulls out some of the sharpness in the onion. So if your kids don't like onion, make sure you're doing this part, and it will lessen that intense onion flavor. And they're not even going to know it by the end that onion's in here, but it's one of those necessary flavors that you need for this particular recipe. So we're just going to let this sit and stir it every now and again when we remember, but we're looking at probably 7 minutes or so for this to, for the onions to soften up. So, now I'm going to show you my other secret. I'm not going to be using whole tomatoes, even though I have some of the occasions I have put them in there. This is truly my one huge discovery, probably a decade ago. I was making chili all the time, and every time I would buy canned tomatoes, the flavor would change. And I discovered these tomatoes, they're Cento San Marzano, and it says product of Italy. Super important when you look at the store for this, that it says product of Italy. These are the absolute best tomatoes. They're not acidic, they're sweet, they are so delicious, and I promise it will change everything you make when it comes to canned tomatoes. So I highly recommend these. Remember, I'm not paid for advertising these. I just am all about sharing because I think we need more sharing. We live in a world where everything is at our fingertips, so why not share with one another and help each other out? But with these San Marzano tomatoes, you'll find them really at any grocery store. They're pricey. I would say at most stores they're gonna be around $5, but if you go to Walmart, they're typically on the lower shelf, so they're not at eye level, a little bit harder to find. Bright yellow can is your clue, and product of Italy. But they run probably $1, $2 cheaper than most other stores. So that's just a little tidbit for you guys. So I'm going to open these up with the can opener real quick. And these are peeled tomatoes. They're plum tomatoes, so they're going to be whole and fairly large, actually. And then we also are going to be using tomato paste, and I'm just using a Costco brand, but I recommend an organic tomato paste. It just tastes so much better. So I'm just going to open these up so we're all ready to go here. Awesome. And now I'm just going to grab a spoon, and then I'm going to grab my chicken broth too and give this a quick stir. And you guys, you can see this at all from that distance. The onions are getting just a little bit brown, which is great. That's where there's a lot of great flavors. So let me grab these few things. Grab a spoon, and then let's see, one more thing here. Water. All right, those are looking perfect. So they're just lightly golden, and the onions turn translucent. And so we are going to go ahead and add in everything. So you want to grab your tomatoes and just dump those into your saucepan, and let me just show you. You can see that big plum tomato right there, and you can use your spoon if you want to break it apart, but we're going to be pureeing this, so don't worry about it. And I actually like to get that any extra juice, so I go and add water to it. I take some water, and when I use the sprayer and kind of go around so it all falls down to the bottom, and I just add that in. So we'll set that off to the side. And then now we're going to add in our tomato paste. So just grab a spoon, put that in there. And try to get out as much as you can. And the great thing is about this recipe too, you guys know how most recipes will tell you to use a tablespoon of tomato paste and you're stuck with the rest of the can, or you toss it and you don't know what to do with it. I love this because I was like, why do I want to waste all that good tomato flavor? So I have been using a whole can forever. And then the next thing we're going to use is chicken broth. Now you can certainly use a box of chicken broth. I typically use this paste for chicken bouillon. Let me grab a clean spoon. Just because it's easy and I never have to work, it lasts forever. And you just put a tablespoon in the bottom and then fill it up with warm water. And it dissolves. So let me go do that. We're going to be using 2 cups, I believe. Let me check my recipe. Yeah, 2 cups of the chicken broth. And you guys, you just stir it around in there and it creates your broth. It's just super simple to use. And so I like having that on hand. And if you get big chunks of it, don't worry, because we're going to be heating up the soup, so it will dissolve in there. There we go. So let me set this off to the side. Move this stuff to the side too. Kind of clean up as I go along here. And put this back in the fridge. And then the next thing we're going to add is agave nectar. Now it's just enough to sweeten it up a little bit. So we're going to use 1/4 of a cup. And you know, a lot of times I just eyeball it when I put it into my soup. But for you guys, I want to show you that I'm using about 1/4 of a cup. So you have a general idea, and this is just one of those quick things that you throw together, and it doesn't take too long at all. It's kind of a fun thing to do on a wintry day. All right, and you know, you're going to leave this on a medium to high heat. It really is going to come to a fairly quick boil for the most part. So just keep stirring. And if you want to turn up your heat to get it warm a little faster, you can. All right. And then what you're going to need is a big bunch of basil. And I typically, now I always talk in handfuls when it comes to herbs. I absolutely love fresh herbs. I talk about it all the time. We did a share class a couple of weeks ago on planting an herb garden. Unfortunately, basil, it was not on our list of perennials because it's an annual. Anytime it's around something, you know, our cold nights here in Colorado, it's not going to be happy. So it's one of those things that you don't necessarily want to plan and you don't want to plan and expect to have it come back the following year. You're just going to use it seasonally. But when I live at the grocery store, they already sell them in these big pots. So I actually buy those and just leave them on my counter. My kitchen faces north, and so in the afternoon, in the summertime, we get all that nice sun. And it's great for this basil. So I pretty much keep it in the house. I do plant some outside just to have it. but I just pick off the leaves. And you can hear it starting to get warm, and then I just break it apart into the pan here, and then leave your stems from the basil behind. So that was a big heaping handful. Let's see if I have any more in here. There you go. And just stir it around, and it doesn't matter how little or small you break it apart. As you guys can see, it's in big chunks right now. You see the big pieces of basil as well as the tomatoes. And that, we want to do that right there at the end because it will add such an amazing flavor to the soup. So fantastic. So let me just clean up these and then we'll come back to it. What I'm going to do now is put my blender over here, and I'm going to attempt to do this gracefully so I'm not splattering the soup in every which direction. So I'm going to put my blender right here as our soup is heating up. And you just have to be careful on this part so you're not splattering it everywhere. It can be a little bit tricky. And so we'll see how graceful I am. I'm actually tempted to just ladle it in for today so I don't embarrass myself with tomato everywhere. Maybe I should try. Should I try it? Yeah, I guess I'll try it. Let's see what happens. Oh, there we go. A little bit down the side, but not too bad. So pour that into your blender. And pop the lid on. There we go. Got it on the right direction. And now I'm just going to puree it up. Make sure it's on low when you start off so it doesn't splatter everywhere. That all up until it's nice and smooth, and just be careful because it is hot. There we go. Put this over in my sink, and then you're just going to transfer it right back to the pan, and we're going to heat it up again. Because the next part, put this off to the side. The next thing you want to do is add in a cup of yumminess, which is the cream. So a cup of cream. If you don't have cream on hand, use whole milk. It's just as good with whole milk, so don't worry if you don't have it. And then give that a stir. And you guys can see it's a pretty color. Give that a stir. And now we just want to grab my salt and my pepper. I just sprinkle maybe a half a teaspoon of pepper in, and then about a teaspoon of salt. And this you'll just want to taste it and see what your family likes. I always start off with about a teaspoon, a couple of sprinkles full, and then test it. And then the next thing is just a squeeze of sriracha. I don't know if you guys have used this, it just adds a great little kick. So a couple of squeezes, and it just adds a little bit of spicy to it, but not overpowering for kids at all. and all you do is heat it through. So that's all there is to it. I'm gonna grab a little bowl, spoon, here's a bowl, and I will just show you how I serve it. I'm gonna grab a few more basil leaves. And I'll show you guys the plant that I was telling you about that you can buy at the store. This is what they look like. Just keep it on your counter and clip from it. It's fantastic, and it will even continue to grow as long as it gets enough sun and it stays warm. That's the only secret to basil. So we've got a couple of basil leaves here. And I'm just gonna take, once the soup is warmed through, I have it on just a medium-low heat here. I'm gonna add a couple ladlefuls here. And then you can take, and this is a really big basil leaf, so I'm just going to tear it into bite-sized pieces and sprinkle it over the top, just like this. And hopefully you guys can see it. I don't want to tilt it too much so it falls out of the bowl here. This is such a yummy soup. It's perfect. You can puree it as smooth as you want it, or I like a little bit of chunkiness, and so I never puree it all the way down. But it is fantastic. It is so good. And here's the thing. You can go back to all those main ingredients. So like the agave nectar, if you feel like it needs a little bit more sweetness to it, put another squeeze in. If you feel like you want some more heat, give another squeeze of the sriracha into it, or just add in a little bit more salt. And so I'm just going to give it another sprinkle here, I feel like it needs some additional salt. But I also swear that this gets better even the next day, and I rarely have leftovers. A lot of times I double this and make a big pot of it and then keep it in the fridge to heat up. But typically I don't have a lot of leftovers because they like it that much. So I hope you guys love this tomato soup as much as we do. Thank you so much for joining today, and hope you guys are still inspired to go and plant that herb garden that we talked about a couple of weeks ago. And we're hitting you up with this soup recipe. Even though it's springtime, we can still get those chilly evenings, and even in the summer sometimes. It's fun to, my kids love to serve this in a mug and then dip their sandwiches down inside of it and do it that way. I like it in a bowl, like I said. So have another bite. So happy Monday, everyone. And thanks for joining today's share class. As always, you guys, share the results of the recipes that you make with us on Instagram or Facebook at Sharing Life, Love, and Food. Thanks for joining, guys. See you next week.